Hello beautiful souls, and welcome back to my channel Soul Journey. My name is Beck, and today I am doing my current decks of summer 2019. So I have several tarot decks, I have several oracle decks, and these are the decks that I'm either readily using in my readings, personal and for clients, or decks that I'm just feeling guided to use over the next few months. So some of these I'm using more than others, but I wanted to give you an idea of the general energy that I am utilizing this summer. So I thought the first place we should start are with my 3 deity decks. Now I work with a lot of guides and spirits, but these are the decks that I have for more of my commonly known deities that I work with. I wish I had decks for all of mine. Of course, I do like connecting to them in other ways, so that's cool too. But I wanted to start off with these because I feel like this summer I'm really diving into working with them more, and so I wanted to bring those out first. So the first deck that I'm going to show you is, I think, my most recent deck that I purchased. Yes, it is my most recent. And if you are interested in seeing more of this deck and kind of going through the whole deck, you can check out my video from a few weeks ago where I did a full review of this deck. That deck is Whispers of Lord Ganesha by Angela Hartfield. I'm not going to tell you all the authors and all that stuff because I don't have all of them right in front of me, but I happen to have this one right in front of me, so I'm going to tell you. This deck has been really, really beautiful, and I've just started working with this deck in the last few weeks, so I feel like my relationship with this deck is still new, but I can tell you what I've already experienced with this deck has been pretty magical. My relationship with Ganesha has kind of grown over the last few years. He's come up for me a lot more, and then in the last few months it's just been so clear that I need to really focus on his energy. So this is really the first time I've really stepped into a deck with this energy. And I'm just feeling like what I've experienced with him on my own in the spiritual sense, that this deck really is kind of holding the same frequency that I have found in my own personal experience with Ganesha. I like this deck because unlike the other 2 decks, or not unlike, it's just different from the other 2 decks I'm going to show you in a second from my other matron goddesses, this deck is a little more simple. The book is a little less meaty, but still has a lot of really good content. So if you're looking for a deity or a deck that you want to, you want to get to know deity a little more, maybe work with some more of that energy, but you don't want like a whole book to go along with it, and you just want simple messages that are clear and more on the positive side, but still clear and helpful, I would suggest this deck. The art is really lovely, and I'm just really loving the yumminess of this deck. If you have any questions about any of the decks I talk about in this video, definitely comment down below and I will try to answer any questions you might have. And I'm not going to show you all the cards for each deck. I'm just going to kind of give you an idea of the energy of the deck and just kind of what my experience has been with it. Alright, so that's good. There also, let me show you, there is one kind of card that is different from this deck, or not one, but 7. This deck also has the chakras in it, and I really, really enjoy that energy. I want to just show you one of those. That's the third eye chakra. So it has each of the chakras in it, and they're really, really beautiful. I'm going to see if I can, if there's any other ones I can show you here. Oh, there's like solar plexus. Anyway, I just really like that they added that in there, and I really appreciate that. I don't really have any like full-on chakra decks, so it's kind of cool to bring that in. The next deck, and a lot of you who are into the tarot oracle community, I'm sure know this deck. This deck I've been working with for several years. It has been intensely crucial in my awakening. My first real vision came right after working with this deck, and it was super, super powerful. And this is the Isis Oracle. Now, this deck is super powerful. I know other people who have really enjoyed this deck, and so this is one of the only Isis decks they really feel embodies fully what what working with Isis really feels like, and I would agree. I've worked with her outside of this deck and using this deck, and it's really powerful. Now, this deck is by Alana Fairchild, and she's actually the author of the other deck I'm going to show you in a second. And she really just channels these decks, and they're really, really powerful. The books are also extremely meaty. So you're going to get a lot of information out of these. These are kind of one of those, you could pull one of these cards once a week or even once a month and just meditate on each of these messages, and you will get so much out of it. So I highly recommend this if you're going through a real transformational time. You want that support of like a powerful goddess energy, a really transformative energy. I highly recommend this deck. And the art is just gorgeous. I love the Egyptian pantheon. I'm very drawn to Egyptian energy. So I highly recommend this deck if that's what you're moving towards. She's a powerful mother, but also a transformation goddess, and just a powerhouse of goodness. So that is the Isis Oracle. All right, and the last deck, Deity deck that I have been working with is also by Alana Fairchild, and that is the Kuan-yin Oracle. Now, this Oracle deck I have used off and on. It's probably one of the, I think it's one of the first Oracle decks I got, one of the first, I think, 3. And this is a very different energy from the Isis Oracle. Kuan-yin is very much about gentleness, very much about loving, sweet energy. And so I find actually when working with Isis and Kuan-yin, are there 2 cards here? Isis and Kuan-yin, they kind of create a really cool balance of the divine feminine. One's more like forward, outward energy, and the other is more inward flow energy. So that's kind of a cool thing. I find this, both the Isis Oracle and the Kuan-yin Oracle, a little harder to read without the books, just because their keywords are a little more like title-y versus like actually what the card is about. I'm sure if you really knew the goddesses and gods well, and you know, all their pantheon work, you might be able to do that a little better. But these decks are really, you really need the guidebooks to go along with this. Whereas maybe the Lord Ganesha, Whispers of Lord Ganesha one, you could read more intuitively just with the keywords, which I actually really appreciate when it comes to reading for clients. So I would never really use the Isis Oracle or the Kuan-yin Oracle for client readings. I may pull it out with a friend and let them, you know, read the book or whatever, but there's certain decks that I find are just way easier to read intuitively versus, you know, going in and studying it and meditating on the book and the meaning that the author has channeled. So as you can see, the art is really lovely, and I just really appreciate this. This is really great if you want to work on self-love, gentleness, connection, love, all the good stuff. So that is the Kuan-yin Oracle. All right, now we are going to move on to my other Oracle decks that I have been using or are on my altar. This next one, if you see my weekly energy readings for the collective, you will recognize this deck. This is the Soulful Woman guidance cards, I believe they're called. It's not Soulful Woman Oracle. I believe it is guidance cards. I love the backing of this. It's really pretty. When I first got this deck, I was really not drawn to work with it, which is interesting because I love the art, but I just didn't really enjoy the book as much. But I think, you know, a lot of decks I will get and they'll end up not being used for a while, and then they'll come in when they need to. But recently I've been using these for client readings, and I like how they have like the keywords and a little message underneath, which I think is really pretty cool. But my favorite part of this deck, honestly, I mean, I do like reading with it, but I love the art for this deck. That's really what drew me in originally. It's absolutely stunning. And now I'm really loving working with it in my readings, and I find it really empowering. And even though it is leaning towards, you know, female energy, it often talks about I am a empowered woman, that kind of thing. Any gender, any identity could work with this deck. It's really, I feel, more working with the feminine energy, and everyone on the planet has that to utilize. So if you kind of come at it from that space, really anyone could work with this deck. But I just, oh, the art in this is gorgeous. I feel like, I believe that this deck has a couple different artists who did the art. I think one of them was the one who did the Mother Mary Oracle with Alana Fairchild, but I'm not 100% sure, but some of the art really looks like that. But pretty much every single card when it comes to the visuals, they're just so powerful and colorful and warm and inviting. And I find this to be a very empowering deck. There's not a lot of shadow work stuff with this, but if that was your goal, you could do that with this deck because you could really, you know, look at the cards that come up and, you know, work with that. But it tends to be a more simple deck. The explanations aren't super long. So this would be a really good, like, easy pull in the morning. Or I like to, you know, have it in my readings, you know, as like a side card, as like a blessing from spirit. So that's really beautiful. All right, the next deck is another deck that you will probably recognize if you watch my readings, and that is the Vintage Wisdom Oracle. Again, this is a deck I barely used for the first couple years I had it, and now it's like I like almost got rid of it, and I pulled a few cards and I was like, oh my gosh, like I need this. I absolutely love this backing. It just gives me life. There may be nudity in this deck, so just heads up on that. But I really love this. And this has vintage pictures and keywords. Now, I will tell you, I pretty much never use the book with this. I think I've used it like all of 2 times. What I really like for this deck is using it for its keywords. It's a very clear deck. It's great for theming readings if you want to go deep, but you want to like kind of see where the general theme is. It's really, really, really powerful. And I really enjoy this. I love the cardstock. It's just a lovely deck in general. And I feel like I don't have a lot of decks with this kind of theme to it, so it is kind of cool to have something a little different. So pull a few more here so you can get an idea. And yeah, this is a very clear and beautiful deck. All right, now moving on. Now the next 2 decks here are actually, you can shuffle together or you can read them separately. And I actually do kind of have themes for these decks. So let me see if I can, if they're all, okay, cool. So these are the Soul Cards decks. And what's interesting about these decks is there's no guidebook. And there are no keywords. It's all just images and it's all extremely intuitive. So the idea is that you intuitively go off of the images. Now, from my experience, Soul Cards 1 is a little more shadowy and Soul Cards 2 is a little more light and uplifting. So I actually do kind of use them in that sense, as I'll use Soul Cards 1 for more like shadow work and I'll use Soul Cards 2 for a little more like the light side of things. So this is Soul Cards 1. And the images are very provocative, they're very intense, they really emote a lot of color and energy. There may be nudity in this, so like heads up. But they're very abstract. And they're just really intense images. Sometimes I won't use these decks for a little while. Sometimes I'll use them a whole lot. I tend to use these in my readings for messages from spirit, things that might be a little more abstract in concept. And, you know, I'll pull a card one day and it'll mean one thing, and I'll pull a card, the same card the next day, and I will pick up on different things intuitively. So, these are really interesting decks. Now, I do know people who shuffle these decks together and use them together because they're the exact same size. The only difference is they have different backings. The same backings, just different colors, actually. And yeah, so these decks are really, really intense, and if you are working with intuition, if you want to learn how to use imagery for your intuition more, I highly recommend these decks. They are pretty wild. All right, so that's Soul Cards 1. And I will show you Soul Cards 2. So this is Soul Cards 2. I feel like this one's a little thicker than Soul Cards 1, but I am not sure. They may have the same amount of cards. I don't know. Same cardstock, same everything, just different color backing. And I do find I get more light readings out of this. So sometimes I like to pull a few cards from both. That can be kind of fun. I do believe they came out Soul Cards 1 and Soul Cards 2. I feel like that would make sense. But I didn't get these until they were both out. So I heard about these from Avalon, from Avalon's Spiritual Odyssey, which I think her channel is just now Avalon Cameron. But she absolutely loves these. She uses these in a lot of readings. And so I eventually was like, you know what? I gotta pick up one of these. Well, I really wanted Soul Cards 2. I ended up getting Soul Cards 1 first, and then I finally got Soul Cards 2, and I was very, very happy. These still, you know, Soul Cards 2 still has some pretty intense imagery, and you definitely could use this as a shadow deck if you wanted, but I've just noticed that compared to Soul Cards 1, it does have a more like spirity light deck, light energy, because the other one has more of like a darker earthy theme. That's kind of what I've experienced. But all the art is just gorgeous. So yeah, that's Soul Cards 2. Alright, this next deck I really haven't done much with, but I can't get enough of its energy. And it's a deck that I looked at a lot until I bought it. And I feel like it's going to take a lot of work to really get to know this deck, because this is definitely a deck you couldn't use without the book for a very long time. And this is the Moon Oracle. Let's see if I can show you the backing here a little better. It's got a little bit of a, not quite a shine, but it's just very light. Now, this deck has 3 different types of cards, and that is the like goddess cards, there's moon phase cards, and then there's a thing called, I think there's the houses or something like that, and it's more like ideas or like action, like things in your life, kind of almost like tarot a little bit. And through very specific types of readings, you can see like where you are at in your life. Now, the few times I've used this, it's been really powerful. These are all goddesses. Hold on, I'm gonna have to shuffle this. It's been really powerful, and I have felt like you could read this intuitively. Like you can see, I split up the cards into the 3. I forgot about that. Into the 3 sections, and then I don't think I shuffled it very much. So let's see if I can show you a little bit of each type. So those were some of the goddess cards. And let me see if I can, maybe this will be a little more. Okay. So I have found that the energy, oh yes, this is one of those more like, I think they called them mansions actually. So this deck is just very different, and I feel like it's one of those more like personal soul work decks that you would have to work with. Oh, see, it's still. Come on, let's see if I can get some of these other cards. Okay. All right. So here's some of the moon phases. La, la, la. And there's different moon phases for different months. And the art is really cool. I really appreciate the art. And it's just a really intense deck. I haven't been able to use it enough to say that, you know, how I would suggest it being fully used in a reading, but it is on my altar. I do want to explore it more. It's something I'm finding is very powerful, and I can tell that the messages that would come through on this deck could be extremely transformative when used properly. So, So yeah, again, I haven't worked with this deck enough. God, I keep flipping these around. This deck has a lot of energy. This deck has a lot of powerful messages, cosmic messages, and I really appreciate that. All right, the next deck I am going to show you, and the last Oracle deck, is another Alana Fairchild deck, and this deck is on my altar. I have not used it in a long time. I feel like this deck came to me from a very dear friend in Australia, and so it has sentimental value. I really like this deck, but I don't use it very much, but it came out onto my altar recently, and I'm curious to see how it comes up for me. This is the Crystal Mandalas Oracle. Let me see if I can move this a little bit here. This deck is powerful. Just like any Alana Fairchild deck, this deck is powerful. So this deck is split up into 3 different types. Masters, goddesses, and angels? We'll see. Masters, we will see. Like I said, I haven't used this deck a lot recently. But it has a crystal and it has like an energy being that it works with. And the book is extremely meaty. There we go. There's goddesses. And it's really a powerhouse of information. I'm not sure why I don't pull cards from this very often, but when I do, the messages are super on point. So if you're looking for kind of like a spirit being deck without having to like commit to one specific god or goddess, this would probably be a really cool deck. Angels, yes, I was right. Angels, masters, and goddesses. So yeah, if you don't want to like commit to a specific deity or master and you just want to like maybe explore what deities are coming up for you or what kind of energies are coming through, or even working with crystal energy, this is a really great deck. And the person who gave me this deck I was living with at the time, and he bought this deck for me, and we both loved it so much, and he was like, oh my god, like I'm sad you're taking it with you because I love this deck. And so before I left, I actually bought him his own copy, and he was pretty stoked about it. So we both really appreciated this. So it's definitely not just for like women or just for men. It's definitely a deck that can be utilized for anyone, and it's a really, really powerful deck, and I really should use it more. Actually, as I'm talking about it, I'm like, why am I not using this more? So I think I will, you know, everything's there for a reason, so it's pretty cool. All right, now let's get off to the tarot. Okay, so I thought we were going into tarot, but I have one more oracle deck, which is for some reason on my tarot side of my altar. Not sure what that's about, but decks are funny like that. Okay, so the last oracle deck I have here is the Universal Love Oracle by Tony Carmine Salerno. There is nudity in this deck, so heads up. This deck is just overall a beautiful deck. This is a great beginner deck, just like the Gaia Oracle by the same author. It's simple, it's concise, but it's really good for stepping into a self-love practice, stepping into your intuition, connecting with spirit. It's wonderful. I like using these for my client readings. I like using it for myself. And when there is someone who's starting to step into their spiritual practice, I might get them this deck or the Gaia Oracle, or let them use it. But I just really love this. I really appreciate the art. The only thing I don't really love about the Tony Carmine Salerno decks is he does sometimes reuse his art in different decks with other keywords. And so if you really like to get to know a deck and you see an image as being like that energy, that can be a little annoying. But other than that, that is my only qualm. If you only have 1 or 2 of his decks, it might not be that big of a deal. But I really love this. It's a great messages from spirit deck. And you could do, shadow work with this. You could do a lot of things with this, or you can just keep it light. You could keep this on your coffee table, and just really bring it in for just like, you know, a kind of a check-in from spirit. And I really like this deck, and I do recommend this for beginners. If you guys are interested in a beginner's deck, like decks video, let me know. I would be willing to pull some decks together, and I can do that with oracle decks and or tarot. I can do both in the same video. So yeah, let me know if that's something that interests you. I like how his art is kind of abstract, but it's also like clear as to what it is too. It kind of really invokes like a feeling. And I love this one. All right, and that is the Universal Love Oracle. All right, now we're getting into tarot. Now, I don't have as many tarot decks as I do oracle decks. And now, in my collection, I have a ton of tarot decks. But I'm doing a lot of readings for clients. I'm really getting into, you know, delving into doing a lot of readings. So these are the decks that I've been using for readings. Mostly there is one deck, 2 decks here that I'm not using as much. But I do use them when the energy comes up. Actually, one of them I just put on my altar. I haven't used it in a while, but I can really feel like it's going to start coming through. So the first deck, though, that I'm going to show you is, I believe, my newest tarot deck. It is 3 out of these 5 decks are tarot decks I've gotten very recently, so that's pretty cool. So if you are looking to see more of these decks, you can kind of go back in my videos and find those reviews. But this is my most recently bought deck, and I've been using it the most, and I've been really enjoying it. This is a deck that I had my eye on for probably over a year or 2, and I finally decided to pick it up, and I'm really glad I did because I love it. And this is the 8 Coins Tattoo Tarot. The only thing I really don't like about this deck is how long the name is. It's a lot. But I appreciate this deck greatly. The guidebook that goes with this is very cool. The author / artist actually designed all these cards out of order. So as her art grew, you know, the cards got more and more clear and I think beautiful. Oh, sorry, that was my laptop. But she didn't want that to be so like, you know, the wands, you know, got all the older art and the coins got all of her newer art. So she did it out of order. So on each card it actually says in the order in which it was drawn as well, which I thought was pretty cool. So anyway, love the size, love the cardstock. This deck is just beautiful, honestly. Now this deck, I've been working a lot with reversals, but this deck specifically loves reversals. Like almost every time I shuffle this deck for a new reading, it wants me to take like half the deck and flip it around and then shuffle it. It's very into reversals, so I will have to do some flipping here. The art for this is really cool. I believe there might be nudity in this, so heads up. I adore this art. I think this is very beautiful, and the messages that come through are really powerful, and the imagery is really good. Now, if you want a beginner deck, I actually think this is a pretty good deck if you don't want to get a Rider-Waite or you don't want to get more of the more like original ones. I feel like the imagery in this is clear enough where as a beginner you could work with this deck. Some tarot decks are very abstract, and I don't feel like this is one of them. Now, the art itself is very beautiful and unique, but the symbology that comes through is still very clear. So I really appreciate that. Hopefully some of my favorite cards will come up. I really love the women in this deck. They're really cool. Now, some of the older art I'm not as big of a fan of. I really like what she really did as her art grew. I really appreciated that. Some of the early art kind of feels more like, I don't know if this makes sense to anyone, but like kind of like children's Bible story kind of art. I don't know if that makes sense. But as her art grew, I just fell more and more in love with the style. And in the book, she talks about the type of how she did art. She actually does this thing called like spit art or something like that. And she literally, it's like you use your own like spit to like move the colors. I don't even know. It's kind of crazy. But it really made for some fabulous art. So I am going to go with it because, oh, she did a really good job. I definitely want to see if I can show you the star card. Oh, see, I love this. This is so beautiful. Oh, love the death card. Love, 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 love the death card. So this gives you, oh, also adore the High Priestess. So cool. I don't want to show you the whole deck. If you do want to see the whole deck, you can head over to my unboxing and first thoughts video. Oh, and we'll end on the Lover's card because that's just beautiful. Look at that, gorgeous. All right, so that is the 8 Coins Tattoo Tarot. The next deck that I'm going to show you is a deck that I haven't used in a while. It kind of like comes and goes for me, this deck. There is nudity in this, so just heads up. This deck I literally bought the day after I got home from Australia 3 years ago. I needed something that was going to ground me, something that was going to open up my practice, something that was going to make me feel like a person coming back to America because I did not want to be here. And I needed something that was going to be new energy, that was going to bring me into a new chapter, that was going to feel good. This tarot deck is very non-traditional. The artist really, you know, she did her own thing and it's powerful. I really like using this deck intuitively. The book, though, is amazing and she goes really deeply into why she did what she did. And this is the Mariel Tarot. And this deck is powerful. I think this is a deck you want to like respect and get to know. And there is almost some like Thoth or Thoth, depending on how you want to pronounce it, Thoth Tarot influences for sure, but it's really just its own deck. I mean, you could almost say this deck is like its own style of tarot. And the images are very, very intense. There's like an entire story in each picture. The art is just stunning. But yeah, in the sense of like how when you pick up like the Thoth Tarot, it makes you feel stuff. This deck, I would say, is very similar. And the book is pretty powerful, like I said. I have not done a lot with the book. I feel like I haven't had the emotional space to do that. So I really read this deck along the lines of the Rider-Waite style, but I really like to read intuitively. So, so this deck ends up being a pretty intuitive deck for me. So this deck has been out for a while, so I'm sure for people who have really gotten into, who have been into tarot for a while, they've seen this deck. And if any of you are interested, I did do a like 5 or 6 part series of my entire Oracle and Tarot collection. That was from like a year or two ago. Oh, no, let's see. It was from like 2 years ago, probably. So not all my decks are in there, but if you want to see a general video of my collection, you can check those out. I won't be doing one of those for a while. That took quite a long time. But so yeah, this deck is very provocative. It's definitely one that will take you on a shadow journey, a soul journey. It's pretty intense. So that is the Mariel Tarot, and that came up for me very recently again. So I believed I used it a few weeks ago for our weekly reading for the collective. So yeah, she might be coming out to play. I often find she comes out in the fall, which is actually around the time I got her. So we are coming into that time. I can't believe I'm even saying that. I can't. So we'll see how she comes in. All right, so this next deck is the deck that I haven't really worked with in a long time, but I keep being drawn to put her on my altar recently, and so I did. I really feel like this is a inner child shadow work deck, and that is the Chic Tarot. Now this deck has very dark images. I wouldn't say like, not like morbid images, but just kind of like haunting images, I would say. And I really do feel like this is when you're working with the traumas and the shadows of your inner child, and really working with that energy, this is the deck to use. It's definitely not a deck for everyone, but it's really powerful. I was given this deck by Racine. For those of you who are in the tarot and oracle community on YouTube, she's known as OwlMoon513. We've actually both lived in the same town for a while, a few years back, and she was the one who really got me into my oracle tarot journey. And so she got me this deck for my birthday one year, and I believe she also got me the Thoth Tarot for my birthday one year, which is pretty cool. So pretty intense decks. And then most of my, original decks, I'd go to her and be like, why this deck? And so she gave me a lot of suggestions, which was really powerful. So that was pretty cool. So yeah, this deck, it's smaller. I don't know, everything about it just screams shadow work, inner child work to me. So if you're not super into more dark imagery, this deck might not be for you. But those of you who are really starting to delve into the inner facets of yourself, this would be a good deck, I feel. It's so funny. Whenever I see this, I always think of this as being a very Racine deck. She really likes the dark imagery. I mean, her favorite deck is Tarot Vampires. So if you know that deck, you can kind of get a general idea. So as I'm going through this deck, I'm realizing why it's coming up for me to use, and I'm really excited to explore this deck as we come into the fall. So get that with the butterfly pin. There's a sweetness to even the feel of this deck, whereas other decks can be like large or like stiff. There's a petiteness to this deck. I feel like this deck was very well thought out. So. And that is the Chic Tarot, and that's by Nicoletta Ciccoli. Alright, so the next deck is one of my newer decks, and this is called the Zilla Tarot. I got this deck because I hadn't seen any of the art before I got this deck. I just saw like the cover and the back, and I was like, I want this. But what I also liked is this came in a little tin. It's a very small tarot deck, and I liked the idea of taking it on trips or having it in my purse so I could do tarot readings on the fly. So, and then my spirit dad Brooks got me this for my birthday this year. And that is the Zilla Tarot. I like this tarot because it is abstract, and like I said, I've been working more and more with intuitive readings, and so I really, really like that. But it is a very small deck. There is nudity in this deck, so I guess if you've gotten this far in the video, you've seen some nudity. Okay. This deck is much more abstract. I think any deck can be used for beginners because I believe wherever you're, whatever energy you're supposed to be working with is good as long as you have a good book to go with it. But I do suggest having decks that are a little more like obvious for beginners. My first deck was the Journey of the Hidden Realms. No, is that what it's called? Forget. it's a tarot deck that's really abstract, in the sense of it's not really obvious what the cards mean, and I remember finding it very difficult, but it was still, you know, it was still the deck that really got me to be okay with tarot. I was raised very Christian, and this had like elves in it and fairies, and it was the only way I was gonna feel okay about it. And so it got me over the hump of all the teachings I'd had about how, you know, tarot was the devil. So wherever, you know, it is that's going to make you feel good coming into working with tarot, like, go for that. But like I said, sometimes the more abstract decks can be hard to start off with, and I feel like this is one of those decks. Now, on the other side of this, it does have keywords, so that can be helpful as a new reader. This deck is more Thoth inspired, I believe. I don't think this was based off of Rider-Waite at all. I believe this was based off of the Thoth Tarot. So there's also that. If you want to learn more the Rider-Waite Smith system, this deck might not be good. However, another flip side on the other hand, if the Thoth Tarot kind of freaks you out, but you want to understand the system a little better, this might be a good deck to get to know and then maybe graduate up to the Thoth Tarot. So there's a lot of cool things about this deck. I really do like the art. It's very different. It does have a Thothy feel to it. Thothy. So that can be really cool. So yeah, that gives you kind of the general idea. All right, and our last deck here is the Spirit Song Tarot. Now this is a deck I had also looked at for a while, and well, I saw it for the first time, and I love the art. I believe this is a, oh god, I'm gonna completely forget the author. Oh, she's done several tarot decks, and now she's done an oracle deck. It's right there on the tip of my tongue, and I don't have the box right here, so I'm not gonna be able to, it'll come to me. It'll come to me. But anyway, I had not seen this deck. This was a new deck of hers, and I was super excited because I had gotten the, her two other decks, and I didn't really use them very often. I actually ended up trading one, and when I saw this, I was just like, oh my god, I love this so much more. And then I couldn't find it anywhere. I mean, I could have bought it online, but I couldn't find it where I'd seen it. And then finally I found it. I think, did I order this one? Maybe I ordered this one because I was just, yeah, I think I actually ordered this one because I was like, I did. I needed this deck. And so I decided to order it because I couldn't stop thinking about it. And that is the Spirit Song Tarot. And I've been loving this deck. I'm really glad I got it. And it is by Paulina Cassidy. There we go. I'm like 99% sure that's who it's by. And I just love this deck. Now, what's different about this deck, unlike her other decks, which are just, you know, her art in the tarot, these are all animals. I also really like that they have keywords, which are awesome. But I really resonated with this being animal-based, which I really, really appreciated. The suits are different. Some of these decks have different suits, actually. I wasn't really thinking about that, but these specifically are very different. And yeah, this deck, it is a little bit of a lighter deck, but it'll give you clear, concise messages. It doesn't go too crazy dark, but it will give you clear messages. I really like the voice of this deck. And I love this. I love some of these animal choices that they made. I just absolutely, absolutely love. And if you really like working with animal spirits, animal totems, and you just really like, you know, delicate, beautiful art, I definitely recommend this deck. It also has a nice size. It's a nice size deck. There's nothing about this deck I don't like. So yeah, I would say the decks I'm using the most for readings are probably the 8 Coins Tattoo Tarot and this deck when it comes to tarot. At least right now. They're always switching out. Oh, I love that. And like I said, most of these have unboxing videos. So if you go through my channel, you can probably find them, especially these ones that are more recent. So, yep. The only thing, and I haven't really worked with the book on this one. It's not just a little white book, it's actually a thicker book. I don't know if it actually has the exact animal that's on the card, but I kind of wish the card said what the animal was, because some of them are more obvious than others. And like this could be deer, but like what kind of deer? And maybe they didn't mean to have a specific type. But I think that'd be kind of cool. And you could use it more as like an animal spirit deck too. So most of them are pretty obvious. Love that. Look at that through the wheel. And we'll leave you with that. So those are my current decks that I'm using for summer 2019. I know that was a lot, but I really like having a variety, and compared to my larger collection, I feel like this is very specific. I've really been working with most of these decks pretty consistently, and I am just really, really loving them. So if you have any questions about any of these decks, please comment them down below, or if you are looking for a review of a deck and you want to see if I have done it, you can comment that down below and I will try to get back to you on that. If you like this video, please give it a like and comment down below if you want me to do these videos going forward, you know, more of like the seasonal, what decks I'm using videos. I am totally open to doing that. And yeah, just let me know if you like this video, and yeah. Anyway, my battery's about to die, so definitely give this a like and hit subscribe if you want to see more videos like this in the future. You can check out my other social media links down below. And if you'd like a personal reading from me, you can head over to my Etsy shop where I offer different readings. Thank you so much for watching, you guys. Many blessings. Namaste. And don't forget, it is all about the soul journey. Bye!